This was a really big moment. There's something a lot deeper going on here than just two people looking at a sunset. Because despite it not having this kind of action or major lore drops, this quiet moment, it might have been the most important. I really liked this storyline, and there's such a lot going on under the surface. Anyway, spoilers for episode 4 of Frieren Beyond Journey's End. It's a date between two people who showed they have about 4 brain cells between them in the last week. We find the party in a fortress city of the dangerous northern lands. Demons and monsters all lurk out there, but who cares, because these two are having their first date. It's the anxiety that comes with that. It's the unknown. It's the fear of messing it up. It's been one of the nicest and I think most understated scenes we've had so far, because Fern and Stark tend to be on the understated side. But this moment was beautiful. It's got a lot to say about those core theme of finding beauty in the small, everyday things. And it all starts because Frieren is too busy with her twin pursuits of becoming a dragon and going for the Guinness World Record of world's pruniest elf by spending all of her time inside a hot spring. So we get to instead look at the younger members of the party, Fern and Stark, who are running through a familiar dance. Fern wants something, and Stark is using every last brain cell that he has, but he can't read minds. Fern does her normal hinting and beating around the bush and not really giving any indication of what it actually is she wants other than looking. While the completely oblivious Stark's mind is completely elsewhere. It's their normal dynamic. But this time there's a major change for Fern and Stark. There's been some emotional maturing, but not quite yet. Fern has to literally ask for attention. She wants to go on a date. The normal Stark-Fern dynamic is for this to happen and no one to realise what the other is getting at. Then that's the end. There's no real resolution, but through teasing and misunderstandings they end up doing something quite couple-like, but in a way that's messy and childish and they don't really realise what's happening. Frieren is ultimately just two really strong teenagers wandering around with a dragon in training, grumbling with each other because they can't understand what the other is thinking. But this time, Stark actually takes the bait. He figures it out, and Fern is just as shocked as the viewer. This drop and walk out without much said. It's funny, but it's setting up this whole anxiety fest in a really clever way. I think this was a really interesting moment. It's one of Stark's most relatable, but also a really good showcase of how he's grown. And it's made more effective by this choice to kind of hide Fern. Because we never actually get to see her face between that and her leaving. That walkout, that attempt to keep her usual demeanor of a stoic who doesn't react, it clearly got broken. But just like Stark, we don't get to see any more to that reaction. I think it's a perfect way to depict this. She vanishes and it's to stop us seeing where her mind is going. If we saw her actual response to this whole conversation, we'd have so much more context for that moment at the end. Taking her away, it puts us directly into Stark's shoes, and we don't quite understand either. His anxiety level is set ridiculously high by these attempts to work through that gulf in understanding. He now doesn't know what to do with a date. I mean, look, the fellow who raised him, he didn't exactly focus on that stuff. It took him a long time to teach him how to aura farm this successfully. He never got to dates. Stark has to go and ask the party's young lady in a scene where she's way more animated than normal. This whole thing is a nice trick that dramatically serves the story by keeping Fern's reaction for the next installment. But it also makes that empathy with Stark's plans paramount under the guise of a comedic scene of Frieren stinking a date off of her grandson. For a couple whose relationship excels in how normal it is, this is how you do that first date. You make that emotional connection and uncertainty. That's the premise. By moving things that way, Stark's anxiety that he has about the date is central to the audience too. I think it's the best way to handle this. And it means that once we got that payoff this week with that moment, it could be quite understated. We felt that relief because me and you, we'd felt his uncertainty for a while too. Frieren, at his request, runs him through some options for the date. It's not rocket science. Fern doesn't have that many interests. A lot of it is food, looking at jewelry, but that's complete with a little callback to her butterfly clip. Some of that symbolically loaded jewelry, but one that's linked back to Frieren adopting Fern. It's nice to get this little reminder symbolically of their relationship right before the earliest part of it gets brought up again. That's all before a quiet open space. And this is something we've seen before, but it's not just what Frieren and Fern have experienced together. It's actually stuff we've seen with her and Stark specifically. This whole date is absolutely loaded that way. Every step is something important. I think it's kind of cool that the whole date prep is enough of its own thing, because it all leads into a little story about how Frieren doesn't think she knows Fern all that well. Everything she knows, she learned from Haita in a weirdly well-animated little scene that gets quite emotional. We see this. There's been a few of these smaller, quieter cutaways to the old party this season. They've been quite sad, even if they're not a full scene like we've seen before. The next that we actually see Fern, she's also asking the only person they know for advice. But Fern is demonstrating why she has at least double Stark's brain power by dismissing Frieren's advice. I mean, outside of the gag, it's Fern asking Frieren for reassurance too, I think, because she's also anxious about how the date will go. These two are having identical anxiety. Fern is just handling it a little better. And of course, Frieren naively thinking hanging out with anyone one-on-one is a date, specifically because she once looked for a lost cat with Himmel. That's cute. But by her definition, Frieren has been on dates with just about everyone we've seen in the anime so far that way. I think it's really sweet that in hindsight she thinks she had tons of dates with Himmel. And even though we've had these great fights, it's Fern and Stark's date, which is the first cliffhanger of Frieren Season 2, with a scene that visually brings us back to when these two first met. This date has some of the most interesting visual storytelling. It goes so much deeper. We had to wait a week for the actual date, and look, we've already seen these two ballroom dancing and raiding demon hideouts, plotting to get their elderly grandma to move out, celebrating each other's most important moments, but this is the first time that we've seen them on a date. I feel like this arc is where these two realise that they're dating, even if everyone else has clocked it 6 months ago. One of the first things that Stark notices is this outfit, which I think is important for how they both deal with their date's anxiety. Fern wanted guidance on what to wear. He wanted guidance on what to do. Fern went with her own choice, one that was definitely Fern. Stark took the gremlins' help, and only one of them it paid off for. And Stark is noticing an awful lot about this person that he's been traveling with the whole time. The line about it not all being magic is kind of nice. That's the appeal of this brief stopover while Fern and Stark get a date. Sometimes it's not all about the magic and the fights and evaporating creatures. Sometimes it's about the ordinary things that count. Stark's anxiety about going on the date. It's a very relatable problem and a sweet touch, and they have this down-to-earth progress in this respect. The problem isn't magic or staffs or carving giant holes in a mountain. It's just two young people on their first dates and a little fear about how it's going to go. What I find compelling about them is how naturalistic their relationship feels. Despite the craziness of the world, they're treated quite normally. They have flaws, communication issues, and a lot of these are problems relating to each other that normal people their age get. This date is about them moving forward to a degree, being willing to embrace what they actually want. And just to hammer it home, we're treated to a bit of a best of. Visually, it's a giant callback. Their whole date is framed around stuff they've done before. It's stuff that me and you have seen them do as they grow. All those non-date dates that they've been on in the past. We get the marketplace bit, which has an obvious earlier version, you know. Eating, there's a ton of that. This dessert scene specifically though, this reminds me of a couple of bits. There's those giant hamburgers in the Aura arc, but even the meal is very close to what they eat when they first bond in this town together. The Himmel statue. A few of their key moments have been around these statues. And finally, the looking out over the walls. It's something we've seen as the setting of numerous important conversations, and here it is again, complete with cloud watching. The kicker, though, symbolically, we already got tied to the very start of their relationship at the start of this date, where Fern took a chance on him and put her faith in a stranger. With that moon shot, it's reminiscent of when she snuck out to meet him the first time around. Fern staring at the moon and thinking of Stark. It's the beginning and it's here. Then the date itself is visually echoing back to how their relationship has been progressing, what it's meant. Frieren is about the passage of time, and through visual language, this is a showcase of how that time can feel. This date doesn't go great for a lot of it. Stark messes a lot up. He doesn't buy the necklace, he just privately reacts to the outfit, doesn't compliment her. He doesn't share food, he keeps talking about her adopted elf gremlin mum for some reason. But he does get a few things right, and it's enough to make the whole date worthwhile. We get all these reminders of the past. There's scene which goes so much deeper to bring us into this moment at the end, which rather than being marred in where they're coming from, it's all about how much they've grown. The date begins in the past, but it's about the future. They've grown. Even Frieren's grown. I mean, look at the evidence. She's getting that time feels different to humans. She's going out on dates. She's figuring out what a date is. Smiling a little more. She's getting more of an idea about relating to normal humans. And apparently doesn't like it and is going dragon mode instead. But this is a milestone. A spot where we can stop and see how much all three have grown. They're all more comfortable and open with each other, especially these two. So at the end, when they're in this quiet moment and they realise Fern has been unhappy with the date, this is again a really real and deeper problem where Stark went wrong was trying to manufacture the perfect day. And what this also means is that she understands on an emotional level all that anxiety he was feeling about the date, that he clearly cared more about Fern enjoying her day than anything else. Often he doesn't know what Fern wants. It's a problem that links back to their core communication issues of relating to each other, where they're both just a little immature to get on the same page without help. But it's different this time. Now they can solve it for themselves. Stark admits Frieren picked stuff out. A lot of what they did is based on where she's taken Fern before, not what would be a specifically them kind of date. Well, she is disappointed in the date being a little odd. I mean, any date designed by a parent might end up being weird. The takeaway is actually something that mattered. Fern reflects on how relaxed she feels, and I feel like the disappointment might get held up by anyone not into these two as evidence that this was a misfire. But when Stark finally deviates from Frieren's plans, she's more relaxed than she could have ever imagined being. Fern is often too high-strung, too tense, too nervous. Performing, being this relaxed, that's a little miracle for her. Stark, who never quite understands, figures it all out. And when the date becomes a genuine moment between the two of them, it becomes something really special. I suppose it shows Frieren's solitary nature once more. She's relaxing in the hot springs and Fern's getting the same relaxation from spending time with Stark. It's evidence of how much quicker humans will grow up compared to her. So much is made here of Stark noticing Fern properly. That's what he achieves on this date. That's what makes Fern so happy. She feels seen. She feels understood. He notices that she's changed her outfit. And suddenly the bells and music are all playing in his head to the point that he can't even hold a conversation. There's a few things that show just how much he's noticed her. That the Stark approach to the date would have gone down better than Frieren's. One is kind of silly, but it's that he points out it's a bargain if they're dating. It wouldn't occur to Frieren, but Fern is the treasurer of the party. He's worried about her budget. And then there's how much stock is put on and relaxing time looking into nature, which seems to be one of Stark's favourite solo activities. And it's something him and Fern bonded on alone, together, really early. The scene of him grabbing her falling, that's an anime edition and a cute little scene, showing in another way that when Stark is more himself, he's much better date material. Cutting away the music for this last scene is a really impactful choice. It elevates it. Stark has picked up on her emotions here too. It's partially because he's so hyper-focused on it, but his usual problem of reading a maladjusted teenage witch pretending to be a stoic, that's always been understandable. This time though, he's managed it. He seems to get exactly what's gone wrong. He knows to ask. Just like he asked about the date. And she knows how to explain what's gone wrong. Look at their relationship so far. And then this. It's real growth. It's great. This moment was really important. It's a similar one to taking her hand before the dance. It's less flashy, but it similarly showcases that emotional connection growing and understanding. That's so much realer. And in Frieren's bigger themes, it's important too. Humans can develop much quicker, and it's not been that long since this. In that time, look at how much better they're getting at communicating, how much more in sync they are, how much more open and relaxed in each other's company. The best bit of the date is once the anxiety is past, all they're left with is the reality of each other's company, and it's a moment so relaxing it provokes a feeling they never thought they'd get. I think it's easy to see the grand romance in Himmel and Frieren, but the quieter, more everyday is very much there with Stark and Fern, and moments like this mean more than a ton of random dragon fights, and they're this happy just quietly in each other's company. Hey, thanks for watching. I've been Comfortable and so big you want to press a button. Right, cheers.